Welcome. Today, our mission is to untangle the hidden, deeply misunderstood strings of human connection.
It's a huge topic.
So we're diving into a stack of really fascinating sources, ranging from clinical behavioral analysis to deep relational psychology to answer a question so many people struggle with, which is why do we end up in toxic relationship loops?
Yeah, it's a cycle so many get stuck in.
And perhaps more controversially, we're going to look at why the standard universally praised advice to just be more independent might actually be the exact thing destroying your chances at a healthy relationship.
Well, the foundation of this entire discussion really relies on redefining what a dysfunctional relationship actually is because, the term is heavily diluted in pop culture.
Oh, totally. Everyone calls their ex toxic.
Exactly. But we are not talking about a couple that occasionally bickers over whose turn it is to load the dishwasher or a romance that simply fizzles out. The clinical sources define a truly dysfunctional relationship as a subconscious, transactional, emotional contract.
A contract.
Two people silently and unknowingly agree to meet each other's needs in ways that are fundamentally self destructive. It is essentially a state of powerless dependency masked as love.
That imagery is so stark, it really strips away all the romance and poetry we usually assign to bad relationships.
Yeah, and to see how this works mechanically, you just have to look at the classic dynamic between a codependent and a narcissist. You have one person who feels internally inadequate and fundamentally unable to exist on their own. Then you have another person who requires constant external validation to sustain a very fragile ego.
So they fit together perfectly.
Exactly. They sign this invisible contract that basically says, if I dedicate my entire existence to taking care of you, you will provide me with the illusion that I am essential and valuable. The relationship is only as secure as their mutual ability to keep fulfilling that deeply unhealthy transaction. It operates like a lock and a key, but it opens a door to a room neither person can ever escape.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Where is this blueprint originally drafted? Because, no one wakes up at 25 and consciously decides to sign a destructive emotional contract.
No, absolutely not.
Many psychologists point straight back to childhood development, and it introduces this wild concept about human biology that kind of completely changes how we view early trauma. The premise is that human beings were technically born 3 months premature.
Yeah, biologically speaking, an infant's brain at birth is roughly 25% of its adult volume,
Which is crazy when you compare it to other animals.
right? Compared to other mammals like a foal that can stand and run within hours of birth, human babies are essentially fetuses finishing their gestation outside the womb.
Wow.
They are entirely incapable of self regulation. Their nervous systems literally rely on the physical presence and emotional regulation of the caregiver just to survive.
And the sources argue this premature entry kicks off an immediate, deeply ingrained separation trauma. There's even this fascinating debate in the literature about the timing of cutting the umbilical cord.
Oh, yeah, the physical severing.
Right. Does that abrupt severing immediately kick off a lifelong struggle between the terror of being separate and the suffocating feeling of being too enmeshed? Because we come out early, that vital psychological phase of separation and individuation goes into absolute overdrive between 3 months and 3 years old.
And that specific window is the crucible for human identity. A child begins to conceptualize that they are a separate entity from their mother or primary caregiver. Psychological tension here is immense. The child realizes they are separate, but they have zero capacity and honestly zero desire to meet their own survival needs. They require the caregiver to enthusiastically bridge that gap between autonomy and total dependence.
To visualize what happens when this bridging fails, the sources use an analogy of a person as a garden. But let's look at the actual biology of a plant. When a tree is growing, it has these specific growth nodes. If an unexpected frost hits a specific branch during a critical growth window, that individual node just halts. The rest of the tree might keep growing, maturing, sprouting leaves, but that one specific branch remains frozen in time as a tiny seedling.
And the clinical term for that frost is individuation trauma.
Okay, how does that actually look in real life?
The sources illustrate this with the story of a 2-year-old named Mary. She is right in the middle of what we casually dismiss as the terrible twos, which is actually a vital developmental milestone where a child learns to establish a separate sense of self.
Right, the no phase.
Exactly. Mary starts testing boundaries by saying the word no. She is asserting a will separate from her mother's.
Hold on, I have to challenge this Mary example from the sources for a second, because putting a toddler in a timeout for throwing a tantrum and screaming no is literally chapter 1 of every standard parenting book.
Yes,
It's just basic discipline. How does a totally normal everyday timeout equal lifelong individuation trauma? Where's the line between behavioral correction and creating this permanent halted seedling?
that's a great question. The line is drawn by the caregiver's internal emotional state and the chronicity of the reaction.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't talking about a parent calmly setting a boundary to prevent a child from touching a hot stove.
right? Safety first.
In the source's scenario, the mother's nervous system registers the child's autonomy as a personal threat. She feels rejected or invalidated by the no, so the punish, the timeout, or the silent treatment is infused with real emotional withdrawal. The child isn't just being taught a behavioral rule, they are being subjected to a micro abandonment. When this happens chronically, the child internalizes a profound psychological equation, which is autonomy equals isolation.
Wow, so the lesson Mary learns isn't, I shouldn't throw a toy. The lesson she learns is, if I have my own personality and my own boundaries, the person I rely on for survival will stop loving me.
Exactly, which forces a devastating adaptation. To survive, Mary suppresses the biological drive for autonomy. That specific growth node freezes,
The seedling stops growing.
right? She becomes clingy, develops severe separation anxiety, and fast forward 20 years, she is an adult who feels entirely incapable of existing on her own. She is actively hunting for that transactional needs contract we talked about. She offers total compliance in exchange for a guarantee against abandonment.
It's like a smartphone running on completely obsolete software. The physical hardware is upgraded perfectly to adulthood, right?
Yes, exactly. The body grows up and becomes an adult, but the mind can still be running on old programming from childhood.
But the emotional operating system running the background processes is literally stuck in the terrible twos. It is frantically scanning the environment for a caregiver.
And once we recognize that these halted seedlings are operating the machinery, adult dating behaviors suddenly make complete sense. We aren't looking for a healthy partnership. We are looking to recreate the original conditions of our childhood trauma, but this time the subconscious is demanding a victory.
Wow, that's a really fascinating topic. I can't wait to hear more in the next part of this podcast.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and see you next time.